Put a couple of glasses down over the last little while, but certainly tonight I think they'll have a little celebration, but they've got the motorbikes on here next weekend, so no real time for a celebration. He got to spray the champagne. There's highlights from the Group A, Group C race earlier on in this weekend. So this was the combination of Group A and Group C, and we saw Adrian Ainsley lead Mark Eddy down into turn one. We had them all mixed up in here together. And this was a good run here for David Toe. He did not finish this race in the end, so David Toe in the JPS car there, the number 44, didn't get through, but this was Jack LeBrock. He charged from the rear of the field to try and challenge for this one here. Justin Matthews at the wheel of the exit Bob Holden car, and really driving the wheels of it for an Escort to be driving up alongside a VH Commodore like that, and that was Jack LeBrock coming across the line to take his victory. What a drive. And this car, of course, owned by Steve Webb, sorry. And here we go. This was the All Group C race, and it was the Gricey A9X leading the Gricey STP Commodore, the Gricey Recar VH Commodore in the Group C trim, the ex-Jim Richards car there, but certainly these enthusiasts, Ed Singleton there, who ultimately fell by the wayside as we saw these Black Falcons start to push their way hard back into this field. And ultimately it was the two Falcons that we see there mixing it up with the Tirana that got through in the end there. So it was the 22 that got through there with John Minna and coming home to take that result, the checkered flag for that Group C race. Now this race will revert to Group A and Group C. We've seen a number of the Group A Ks, Shebek's drop off by the wayside. I'm quite surprised by that. Group C cars are the older ones. You'd expect that they might be the ones that might have some problems, but I guess those Group A cars, they were higher revving, more higher strung. You don't want to rebuild an engine on an RS Cosworth, let me tell you. If it's got a Cosworth stamp on it, add a zero.
Or two.
Yeah, and a list of zeros. So they do rev them hard, those turbos. They ran them up to over 30 pound of boost when they were really running them. And of course the DJR cars were the best Sierras in the world, and that's not an argument. That was actually plain hard fact back in the day that those Shell Sierras were the best in the world.
Some great historical significance, the RS 500s, aren't they, in Australian touring car? Championships in 88 and 89 with Dick Johnson, those two Australian touring car championships, and of course the 1, 2, 3 in the 88 Bathurst. This is a 92 Sierra that is being driven by Jack LeBrock, an older version of the RS 500.
Jack LeBrock is on pole with Adrian Ainsley in the Walkinshaw Commodore. Bill Cutler, the first of the M3s, to Mark Eddy in the HR31. Ed Singleton, let's hope he can bring the STP Commodore home. Tony Sawwood in the Gricey Tirana. Adrian Brady, John Minna in the Falcon. Lindsay Woolard in the VC Commodore. Ed Singleton down there in the STP car, which hasn't taken the field. Was on the grid sheet, but no, Ed Singleton not out there. Here's the Exa of Justin Nilsson being driven and prepared to within a millimetre of its life. In fact, I've spoken to some people that worked on those cars back in the day, and they're proud to say that Justin's prepared it better than what they ever sent it out for Christine Gibson back in the Group C era. We're away, and it's a 10-lapper for the historic touring cars. We've still got two races to go today for the Skysand Sports Sedans, and Group S still coming our way. And here is the Commodore, logs into second place. Mark Eddy pushes to third. There's the Black Falcons now. They're starting to hunt in packs. Those two ex-John Sands cars hunting together.
What I do love about this heritage touring car category is that the cars have kept original sponsors and the like from their race day, and it just brings back so many memories for us and for the people out there watching trackside at the moment.
I could call this race really easy if we were calling them in their original trim. Because this is when I was a kid. This is when I watched every Sunday afternoon.
Now, would you have called Peter Brock in this Sierra back in 1990 when he came fourth at Bathurst?
No. Brocky drove Holdens.
No, he drove the Ford Sierra.
He drove some BMWs by mistake too for a little while there too. But no, this is serious racing. These guys are actually out here. They are running in the yesteryear livery, but this is actually a serious category of racing. So Jack LeBrock is out in front, and Adrian Ainsley, Mark Eddy, Bill Cutler, Tony Sawford, and here's these two Falcons. It's Mina And it says Ed Singleton out there in the number 83 on our timing screen. That's just a little bit confusing for us at the moment. So there's the 22. That's John Mina. And the John Sands, the later model, that's an XE and an XD and an XE. Those massive bags under the back of them, aren't they? Just the biggest set of tyres you've ever seen, bar a Formula 5000.
It is quite confusing because George Innes was in the 83.
It is
earlier
George,
on.
Unless they've swapped and we haven't been notified, but certainly George Nittis got a podium in the last race, which was just Group C.
Ed Singleton's 21, which he's been racing for the remainder of the weekend, is out of the race, so whether he stepped in.
Quite possibly. Quite possibly. But we don't know officially, so I guess we've got to call it as Ed Singleton, because that's what it says on the timing screen. This Commodore is doing a really, really good job. Adrian Ailsley is very, very serious about this, and it wasn't too many Commodores that got such great results back in the day. I guess it was Gricey and Armin Hana and the other guy's name escapes me that won the 92 Bathurst, but I'm sure the V8 Sleuth will set me right on that. Aaron Noonan will have that information and he'll be reminding me of it next time I see him. Wilmington Performance emblazoned across the front of this car, and it's staying true in its livery, which are the rules of heritage touring cars. You've got to have this. These cars actually have to be the chassis of them. I saw a guy just recently that drove one of these Waukeshas, the Gem Spares car of Daryl Hendricks that had a top 10 finish up at Mount Panorama back in the day. It was great to see Daryl. He wasn't as fit as what he was when he raced the Group A's, and Laurie Nelson actually had the same function. Laurie, of course, ran the Capri components, Capris in Group C, and then the Mustangs in the Group A era. It's the number 22 now of John Mina. A couple of Black Falcons.
Did you say the 92 Bathurst?
Yeah.
Crosby drove with Win Percy.
Win Percy, I said Armin Hana, sorry, it was Win Percy. Of course, in the number 16.
HRT Commodore.
Yeah, the mobile net car, yes. Lovely car. I think that's still, even though they've moved buildings, I think that's still in the reception of HSV, that particular car.
The year of the great win for the Nissan Skyline. Richards and Scaife.
Yeah, that was a famous year for the podium too.
The famous
Richards,
comment,
wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was right. No argument from me.
Was it your pack of mongrels?
Yeah. You pack of undesirables. Could say that about the commentary team of Shannons Nationals, couldn't we? We got a race to call and we're chatting about the past. Jack LeBrock has driven away with this again in the Sierra, but not too far away. They can still see where he is out in front. And it's Adrian Ainsley that is chasing him down. Mark Eddy in the HR31 Skyline, which came out of the Gibson garage down there in Dandenong, the first of the Gibson workshops. It was a little workshop, and they all piled in there. It wasn't until the GTR days that they got themselves a big flash new workshop. There was cars nearly stacked up on top of each other down there in Dandenong. And there's a pass. It's the number 83. Our screen says Ed Singleton. And he hasn't got through yet. The 22 hanging there. John Mina's not giving it up.
Should mention the great work by Jack LeBrock too in the last couple of weeks. He had a fantastic drive down in Tasmania in the supercars, a couple of top 10s, starting positions for him in the races, and then finishing the final race in 5th place. Really has come to life as a rookie in his first year full-time in supercars.
To not put too fine a point on it, there has been some rookies that have wasted our time and theirs by going into supercars. Yeah. I don't think Jack LeBrock's going to do that. No. He's going to make every post as near to a winner as he possibly can. A genuine and absolute talent. And he's jumping on board with Techno.
He's got the Peter Hackett Hollywood looks too.
He does too. Yep, younger version. Younger version. Gee, he drove the Betty's AMG Erebus Mercantile lap record all those years ago too, when he was part of the Erebus program. But now with Techno driving in supercars. And you've got to respect the fact that Webby's put him in the car that he owns to come and get some laps here, of course, to win some races and represent in Group A and Group C. But yeah, I'd say more importantly for Jack is to get some laps around this track so that when they come here in August, he'll have the upper hand in some way of just getting where the corners go. Oh, Ainsley has gone off. He's lost a spot to Mark Eddy. He's gathered it up before Bill Cutler could get through in the Warsteiner car. The old Schnitzer washed on a car. Gee, Schnitzer was a word that just emblazoned the Group A era with these M3s. Really cool little cars. Yes, there was one that had Mobile in 05 written down the side for a little while. You know, we're all allowed to make mistakes. We've all got girls in our past that we have walked away from.
ProDrive actually ran those M3s as a rally car back in '87 as well.
Oh, of course they did. And ran them to the full 12,000 RPM in the Manx Rally and those bits and pieces. Some great footage on YouTube with those cars. This one here is one of my favourite of all time, to the old 635 CSI in the Group C trim, the bolt-on guards. You know, like you bolt on guards to an A9X, you don't bolt on guards to a 6 Series BMW. Come on, boys, respect. A little bit of Frank Gardner respect for the Bavarian Motorworks. Yeah, we need wider guards. Bolt some on. There's a couple of cars with bolt-on guards.
They look good on the Tirana, the bolt-on guards.
Oh, absolutely, makes them. That and the houndstooth cloth seats. And I tell you what, you've got to have an XD. You've got to have a skinny seat cover too, like Dick Johnson had. The big furry seat cover. Gee, I tell you what, they would have been hot around the mountain in some of those Bathursts. But he did it. It was a sponsor. Had to do it. Had to wear a moccasin to the racetrack.
Yep, exactly.
Here we go, a couple of the 2-litre cars going side by side. An AE86 Sprinter, a Mark II Escort. Bob Holden. I don't know how many Escorts Bob Holden had over the years, but just about every one you see is a Bob Holden one. Strangely enough, the man's surname was Holden. He ran FOMO co-product.
Exactly.
Back into second place, or third place and fourth place now, Adrian Olsley. Very serious battle this going on with Bill Cutler, because they're trying to drag points out for their own championship within the Heritage Touring Cars. Last year, of course, was won by Tony Alford. He drove the GIO ex-Mark Gibbs Nissan Skyline GTR and was just like the GTR was in the day, dominant. Big run. Have a look at this. Some under 2-litre cars. These guys after my own heart. Really cool stuff. A couple of Eskies. Looks like a ex-Columbon type livery works there, the yellow and orange stripe.
So the Nissan HR31 of Mark Eddy's, is that like the precursor to Godzilla?
Yeah, just the last one. There was a DR31, then the HR, then it went to the GTR Skyline.
And was that the Nissan they had issues with at Bathurst, where they all had to be pulled apart, all the engines? There was protest against.
I think every time Fred Gibson put an S in at Bathurst, they had to be pulled apart, didn't they? I think right back to the George Fury Group C Bluebird, they were pulling engines off that. When he put it on pole, that was never supposed to happen. But no, I'm not the right person to ask the exact details of those, but I do know that at the time there was the DRs, the HRs, and there was the Gazelle, which was what Scafie started his Group A career in down in Dandenong. And of course, Fred Gibson and Alan Heafy now have a new state-of-the-art workshop, which they're rebuilding all these old Nissans, and you can get down there to Alan Heafy and Fred, and they've got their factory there. In fact, I think there's a couple of collectors that are buying up all of those cars at the moment. So Fred and Al, not young men anymore, but I think it'll keep them well and truly going into their retirement years. And yeah, just getting a little bit of water on the camera there, Shebex.
A little bit of a sprinkle happening around the track. Better than the wind that we've had the last couple of days.
Number 69 of Daniel Cottrell. He's operating up higher than he has been all weekend. Now this battle is going to continue. We're going to go side by side. And that's Lindsay Woolard. Just looking for where Justin Nilsson is, actually. Sorry.
There's a couple of cars in front of us.
Yeah. So the X-Up, here we go. Doing a bit of slipstreaming. Here comes the number 2 ex-Marston and Holmes BK Commodore, running in full Group A trim. No air dam on the front, no side skirts, no rear wing. First year of Group A. Wasn't the General's proudest, that's for sure.
Big move by Patterson. By Matthews, I should say, up the inside of Patterson.
Harrison and Cutchy, Ashley Cutchy's dad. Doesn't like it when I say that. The yellow Escort. Under brakes here. Heading on to front straight. And wind up the big 308. Big thing to push through the air. Here's some Group C era racing. Have a look at this. This is fantastic.
Not much better than the sound of a fully worked and 5-litre 308, is there?
Formula still works, doesn't it?
No doubt.
It worked back then, continues to do so today. And this is what the battle's always been about in Australia. It's being represented on our screens, and that's a representation of the late 80s and the late 70s and the early 80s.
So interesting when we see Holden last week pull their support, I suppose, of the V6 Turbo, and electing to stick with the V8 engine at the moment in supercars.
Pretty sure I said to you, don't mention the war, didn't I?
No.
We're talking about that? So,
I mean, it's what the punters want, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. I think we learnt the lesson at the end of Group A and we went to V8s. We did that for a reason. That's just my observation from afar, that's for sure. As we see these three Aussie-built V8s going for it. They're battling it out for just outside the top 5 because it's an English-built RS 500 leading the way. It's only a mild gap over Mark Eddy and his Skyline, and it's back to the Commodore. Here he is, Jack LeBrock. It was John Smith and Colin Bond that drove this car. Did it very, very well indeed. Just looking to see how Jack's enjoying his way around here. Certainly a good experience to drive one of these cars, because let me tell you, if anyone said to you, do you want to have a drive of a Sierra? If you said no, you're absolutely crazy. To feel the anger of one of these cars, and when you hear John Bowe and Dick Johnson talk about them, John Bowe almost shakes. He remembers how hard he used to have to push those things to get a result.
Isn't it funny how certain things, they trigger certain parts of your memory? And I suppose if you said to anyone out in the crowd today, what is the most famous sponsor on a Sierra? Texaco would have to come straight up, wouldn't it, as number one?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I suppose, because that was the Roush team. And, they were excluded from Bathurst for the way they manipulated the regulations. I would have probably said maybe the Shell Sierras.
Oh, yeah.
Because they were all dominant.
Yeah.
And they beat what was allegedly the best Sierras that came out from Europe to race them. And they did it well. Have a look at this. We're going to go 3 wide down the straight. Got a couple of 351s and a 308 going at it. Through turn 1 for one more time. I believe it's Ed Singleton in the 83. He's turned to maximum attack here at the moment. Mina and Tony Sawford. Mina's gone back 1 spot. They've swapped around these 2 Black Falcons. They worked together in the Group C race to get themselves 1 and 2. And now they've got the Craven mild car. And we're counting it down now. Looks to be getting a little bit more greasy out there. Are we getting a bit of gloss on the track out there, or is it just the angle of the camera? No, it's still dry. Our race leader now coming through, dispensing with some of the lesser capacity cars, and comes up onto the back of the ex-Steve Masterton car. Now the McDonald car number 2, Jamie McDonald, goes through.
Great story about Jack LeBrock and the fact that he was one of the few drivers in that supercars field that was a left foot braker. Has had to really change that in the last few weeks.
Of course, Greg Murphy was famous for his left foot braking. Yeah, Jack LeBrock's taken advice from a lot of places over the last little while. It's working for him. Adjusted his driving style.
Even jumped in a manual car.
Yeah. And around he goes.
Doing a great job.
Familiar bounce. They're always sprung so stiffly. The Sierras often lifting rear wheels in the air. Of course, the type of diff, they could keep the drive going through them. And there's the checkered flag for Jack LeBrock that wins by only 3 seconds this time round. So didn't wring the neck of the Sierra.
Did what he had to do.
No, he didn't have to. Mark Eddy comes to the line. Then it'll be Adrian Ailsley. But we've got this plethora of cars that have been lapped that are coming to the line there as well. Absolute plethora of cars, causing a cacophony of sound as they get through there. 4 cylinders, V8, 6 cylinders, and working their way down through the slow-down lap. And that was always important with the Sierras, was to try and get the heat out of the turbo before they stopped them. Often you'd go down through the pits 15 minutes after the race and they'd be still running them up to make sure that the turbos didn't crack and overheat. As soon as they stopped, the underbonnet temperatures went sky high. Still coming to the line now. It was Adrian Ainsley that rounded out our podium. Bill Cutler didn't get there in the end, but home for fourth. So Jack LeBrock confirmed with Mark Eddy, Adrian Ollesley, Bill Cutler, Tony Sawford in the first of the Group C cars home in this combined race. John Mina in the XD, Adrian Brady in the BMW. Then it's Daniel Cottrell, Lindsay Woolard, Ed Singleton in the XE. In the end went backwards.
Dean Howe in 11th place in the BMW, and Singleton driving 2 cars on the top sheet in the Ford Falcon as well. Sean Tunney up there as well. Jamie McDonald, Neville Butler rounding up the field with a couple more. Let's have a look at the highlights from what was a nice, close Heritage Touring Car race, and a good start for our leader and eventual winner, Jack LeBrock, up the inside.
Yeah, it looked like the Commodore was going to go with him, as he has done early on in the last couple of races, but Jack LeBrock just did what he had to do. This was sort of the battle early on as well, until Mark Eddy got through on Adrian.
A little bit willing left, didn't it?
Bill Cutler again lurking in the background. This battle became a lot closer between these 3 cars, the Tirana and the 2 Falcons. How's that under brakes, the handfuls of lock, and just absolutely nothing happening out of the steering box. A lot of work. These cars are prepared. As I said before, the Justin Nielsen cars, some guys that worked on those cars in the day said better prepared than what they ever did. They really do love them.
Yeah.
They love to get out and give it to them as well. That's what we like.
Exactly. And you can tell too, great close racing here in the Heritage Touring Car category. The number 6 car there of Sawford picking up a spot, but there's our winner on the checkered flag, Jack LeBrock, taking it and making it a clean sweep of the weekend. A great effort by Jack LeBrock after what we said was a great weekend down in Tassie for him in supercars, and I'm sure he'll continue that next weekend at Phillip Island.